world where achievements and accolades motivate us to do more and be more, we're often left wondering, is this really it?
Deep inside, you know there is more to life. You're ready to leave behind the old, push your way through, and claim the deeper life that's calling you.
That's where we excel.
We're your hosts, Stephanie Allen
and Maren Oslak.
And this is the Soulful Leader Podcast.
Sit back and relax as we share the shortcuts we've uncovered to help you make shift happen. Hi, welcome to the Soulful Leader Podcast. Really excited here today because I have a really wonderful guest along with Maren and I to talk a little bit about Feng Shui. And now some of you, if you haven't heard of what Feng Shui is, it's about the way of wind and water. And it's a very ancient Chinese way of being in right placement and right placement within as well as out in our outer world. And we thought how wonderful to be able to talk about this in the Soulful Leader, because as soulful leaders, we want to be in the right place in our hearts, in our souls, and in our lives and serving with others. So I want to welcome William Brisson, who is a master healer and Feng Shui expert. He's been practicing energetic Feng Shui and space clearing for over 20 years. And he knows his stuff. I've worked with him. He has helped me shift mountains within my own heart as well as in my space around. So for decades, he's been experiencing with thousands of clients that in their living and work, both in their living spaces as well as their workspaces, and can support as being able to remove the hindrances around opening up possibility and allowing for more of an energetic, healthy well-being. Definitely passionate about helping families, children, and business to grow into a healthy, clear environments so they may flourish, be happy, and develop their gifts. William is currently working in commercial spaces in New York City and abroad. So he is now, with this whole new movement to being able to be online, he is working on an energetic level for wherever you are, wherever you're listening into. William can literally zoom himself into your space and your area to be able to help you out. So really great to have you here, William. So excited.
Thank you so much, Stephanie and Maren. It's a great pleasure and warm welcome to everyone listening.
So I know some of the questions that I've had, I was just actually speaking to a couple of my clients this past week, and you know, it's really interesting as a therapist, when people are coming in, it's amazing how the homes or the workplaces that they choose are also very much mirroring kind of symptoms of things that they have going on with themselves. And so I was curious, can you tell me a little bit more about why that happens? Like, what is that? What's going on? Like, why are we so interconnected with the places and the environments that we work and live in?
It's a great question of where are we choosing from? And sometimes we're choosing from a place of perceived lack, or maybe what we might say are issues in ourselves. And so the place will mirror those beautifully for us. We choose in this way. We might have this blind spot, the way someone might choose same kind of a pattern in relationship over and over again. The beauty of it with your space is when you apply different systems. So Feng Shui is one system across the world that can be used. And a way to answer the question you're asking is, there's something called a Bagua that Chinese Feng Shui uses. It's a map. There's 9 squares. People have perhaps seen these where the upper left corner is wealth, and then the upper right corner is relationships. So depending on the system you use, they'll align this over your house. And it's a big open square. Feng Shui really hates, I'll say, when part of that square is missing. And you can feel this if you walk into a home or a building that's a big open square. It has a certain feeling. And then if you walk in where it's geometrically cut in patterns, that also has a different feeling for us. And when you align this map over an area that's been cut out of, Feng Shui would say, oh, it's interesting that it's missing that part of the map, which say the bottom right corner is helpful people. So if that area is always missing in every place you've lived in, then maybe helpfulness can be an issue that's hard for someone to receive in their lives, to rely on others for help. There might be a lot of charge on that from their upbringing. So in this way, it can become a mirror if we use it in a good way, not as in a shameful way, but to say, maybe I keep picking an area where the bathroom is always in the wealthy area. It's going down the toilet. Something is calling, my soul is really calling me to have a better relationship with either helpfulness or wealth, or health is one area. So we can use it instead of being used by the circumstance when we wake up to these things. That's what I love about the work you're both doing, is helping people to have a better relationship. And with our land, our environments, this is also highly significant. I'm glad we're talking about it today. Thank you.
So I just want to like clarify the whole Bagua aspect of it. I know, like in Chinese medicine, Bagua actually means eight. So like there's eight corners, right? It's, when you think of like a stop sign,
Yes.
it's got like that octagon
An octagon.
aspect. And so if you took like an octagon map and you kind of placed it on top of your house, those certain areas represent certain qualities, right?
Yes.
And
Right.
oh, go ahead.
The modern one is more of a square instead of having the corners kind of shaped like an octagon. So people can see it that way. Mostly our houses have four corners. So don't feel like part of it's missing if part of that angle is on one of your corners. It's the modern ones are a big square. So please go ahead.
No, I was just thinking because so often like I know myself, like I can go into an area and something just feels off, and it might be all the right colors or all the right tactile things that I like to do, or and it's just like, but something just feels off, and it can kind of sound a little woo woo, can it? Like in that way, it's like, okay, am I crazy? Am I like psychic or different things? And I guess why I want to have you come here because it's really backed in a lot of science and a lot of, I mean, it's thousands of years old, this whole tradition. I always say if something doesn't work, it's not going to last more than 10 years. If it does, there must be some validity to it. So can you tell us a little bit more about kind of the background of it?
Sure. So the eight directions have to do with, when you look at the traditional baguas that have their octagon shape, they're to do with the eight directions of the compass. So what they say is thousands of years ago, people this is somewhat traditional Feng Shui, 3 to 5 thousand years. People would bury their family and they would feel that the way that the body was positioned was causing good or bad fortune for the family that was remaining. And sometimes they would exhume the body and reposition the body in a different direction with the direction where the head was facing. That's where they say Feng Shui started, was sensing the lines in the earth, which there are instruments that can measure electromagnetic frequencies now and of the magnetism of the planet. So perhaps traditional people had more of a sense of these things, just like animals can have such strong sensing of the elephants know when the tsunami is coming and they go uphill hours before sometimes. So they say people were aware in these ways as well. And even with Chinese medicine, as you practice, they say that they could see these points in the body. Somehow they have these faculties that perhaps we've lost or been shut down now from modern society. So then they started to align the buildings and sacred sites, more temples and palaces and things along these axes on the earth. So it was a lot about the placement of things. And the eight directions on the compass were aligned to eight trigrams or hexagrams from the I Ching, which is a system of divination. They took eight of them and they said, standing in this, where you are, and you look in that direction, it correlates to this part of the system of the I Ching, that quality. So when you see the modern Bagua, you're seeing the eight directions of the compass are on the outside, and they have qualities like wealth and fame and illumination and family and health and relationships and knowledge and career. So they correlate to this old system, the I Ching. And this came over thousands of years. And again, now it's made this map. It's a schematic that you place over your house or over sites that correlate to these eight areas. And the center is usually just called the center. What's fascinating is, as you do with Chinese medicine, Stephanie, they correlate some of the squares correlate to the 5 elements and how they interrelate with each other. Some feed each other, some control each other. So this gets a little more technical. I think what people would maybe want to hear the most is, like you said, a place can be beautiful on the surface, but it doesn't feel right. It can feel cold. Or a lot of my work in New York City, where I've worked with Corcoran and different real estate companies that people may know, I was called in because a business just wouldn't hold in that location. It was one after another. They kept washing through. And so I come in and I do a system with this energetic work of showing with some testing with the body that I use, applied kinesiology, it's called. And everyone's body is in agreement that this place has something that's creating an aversion. Now, what Feng Shui has said for all these centuries is previous occupants' energies remain in a place after they leave. Just like we have in our own being, from our life experience and our subconscious and unconscious, we have memory. Place has memory. And that's what I hope people hear from us today, is that a place can have an atmosphere or have a resonance to it that may not be serving the current occupants and what they're intending to create. Whether it's that family in that home, maybe the family before had a lot of discord or trouble, troubled relationship and divorce. Feng Shui would say, we don't see these things. It's the unseen level, but it's not the unfelt level. People, by their experience, infuse place with qualities, with the experience, with the memory, and the atmosphere. So it's like they're leaving their music on, but it's inaudible, and it just keeps putting us in a certain mood by being in that place. But for example, for our business, what I hope folks are hearing that are soulful leaders is, if a business failed there, or maybe it was a different kind of business and now you're trying to create a very different kind of business in that space, there can be a conflict. It can be incongruent, and now you have something what would be like an opposition to your intentions. And this is what we hope to say here tonight a bit is, how can you change that atmosphere? Like if you were trying to plant a garden in your yard, work that soil, make sure it's fertile for what you would hope to, seeds you want to put in and harvest from there. So Feng Shui has talked about this for thousands of years.
It's so interesting that you say it like that, because I think all of us have stores or restaurants or something in our area where we've just watched store after store or business after business after business. It's like, oh, that's the fourth or fifth business in there. They're not going to make it either. And like, right?
Right.
And, one of the things that we've talked about as soulful leaders is that it's not so much how we're leading somebody else. It is. And it really starts with the leadership within. So one of the things that I was fascinated with as I was listening to you is thinking about, how would I apply that information that I just learned to my own home? And I think about some stagnant areas in my home where they're kind of like those stuck restaurants, right? Or businesses where no matter what I do, no matter how often I clean out that little area of that little nook, it always ends up with crap in it. So as our listeners are thinking about this, both in their businesses and in their personal lives, is there something that you could help them with to help them understand, like, that little area of stuckness in their lives that might be reflected in this area of stuckness in their kitchen or in their living room or wherever?
Yeah, a simple way to do that is if you have a Google search, and for those who are interested, maybe we'll do a follow-up here, so that people can take this map and put it over their front door and look at the area where there's clutter accumulating, and just notice what area that is. And then maybe the most important thing is, I'm remembering some work I did with someone who, the area that was the most disregarded was the career area, but it was the front door, so there was a porch there. And we talked about revamping it. So clean it up and get it was being used as storage, and put some new seating there and a new rug and brighten it up. And that area, the front door, very much also has to do, so if we're talking about homes, but even businesses, has to do with our facing the world self. So how we see ourselves being seen by others and how others see us. So we did this work, and within about 2 months, this person's life started changing from the inside, where she wanted to start doing podcasts herself, which was something that had never been an idea. And then wanting to start working, after this year we've all gone through of kind of being home a lot and not really thinking about ourselves, started working with a stylist, thinking, I really want to I'm working with my image now and how I'm presenting to the world. It started to have huge implications and shifts in her life that she never expected, but we also never expected working together and just cleaning up that area. And she realized, by letting that area go and saying it didn't mean that much, and the house is more about just mowing the lawn and taking care of the basic things, something else was being missed that was breaking down a huge chunk of her life, which was also her career. And now it's revitalizing in ways that aren't being forced. It's not that she's trying to do it. It's just natural, like a garden is just starting to come into bloom. And that we're both really surprised by the results. So folks perhaps could take one area. How about if we do this for a minute? Let's just do a quick little visualization together for those who are listening. And hopefully if you're driving, it won't deter you. So maybe don't go too deep into this if you are. Go into your home in your mind and notice where you're drawn. What room or area of the house falls to you? And not thinking so much, just kind of let it be a creative right brain process right now. Take a moment and see where you're drawn to go. Or if it's your business space. And just notice what the atmosphere feels like to you, the energy in a sense, does it feel like it's moving and lively, or is it blocked, stuck? And that's good enough for now. We can do more of this another time together if we'd like. So just wonder, even, Stephanie and Maren, you're doing this here. Do you want to share? Did you get any call to any part of this space?
Yeah, I got called to my bedroom actually.
Hmm. And did you have any awareness of why, or did you notice something about it in this visiting in this way? Like
It's
seeing in new eyes?
it's the most peaceful area of my house, and we recently did renovations, and that's where I feel most at home.
Hmm. That's wonderful.
Most interesting because Stephanie had talked about this at one point where she was answering a survey or something online of where what your home means to you, and for her home was restorative. I believe that was the word. You can jump in there, Stephanie, and share. But
Sanctuary.
sanctuary, yes, and that's how I feel about my bedroom. Is it's a restorative place. It's very much my sanctuary.
Do you have an idea why that's important right now in this moment, that it would call to you in that way?
Gosh, there are a
Yeah.
couple of things that come up. Yeah, I think that I'm transitioning between two different things, and having that as my place to go and repose feels very important.
Hmm. Have you been noticing that consciously lately, or is this a new awareness that just came here that would be more important these days or during this time?
I did just put it together here now as we were chatting.
Oh, good.
It was an insight. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah. But we can thank our inner self. Thank your inner self. That's what you're both doing, is really, who am I? What am I about? Knowing myself before we even start to even do a lot of these out in the world actions. So that's powerful. That'll give you the provisions needed. Sounds like going forward. That's wonderful.
My area that I chose was actually the new area that I just added on. It's interesting. I had a tree fall about 2 years ago during a hurricane, and it took out the back porch, which I have intended to tear off like 10 years from now. That was kind of my 10-year plan. But obviously, Mother Nature thought it should be sooner. And it happens to be in my wealth gua.
Mm.
And wealth, I love the term wealth in the way of it isn't necessarily money oriented. Wealth is blessings. You know, what do you have when your money's all gone? That's all the blessings. And what's interesting is that that is the very thing that in the last 2 years, I guess that's why I call my house sanctuary, is that I've been really cultivating the blessings in my life and banking my blessings. And what's interesting is that it's in constant remodeling right now. So I feel like it's getting an upgrade. And in that same time, there's a little chaos happening, but there's a movement to that chaos. It feels good, and I'm excited about what's going to transpire.
It's wonderful to hear that you both got uh, indication from your space about some beautiful qualities. So as a meditation on beauty of peace and blessings, and a lot of the work I do with this, we can say energy seems so mysterious, but it's really like you said, Stephanie, does a place call to you or does it create an aversion? You know, like Maren was saying, does a business hold or not? And are people drawn to that place? And you're all investing so much from who you are, and it's of course infusing into your places. And then the place is a living being. We think of them as inanimate. And what if we thought of them like a garden where we go out and talk to the plants, we have plants in your house? And here was a conversation that was happening where the place was saying, I'm offering you peace. This is especially a place where there's peace here. Or here's where the blessings are, and let's remember this more and more. And that attracts even more of those things to ourselves in that gratitude. So I think that was wonderful.
So I have another question because I'm constantly reminded that in our Western mind, our Western world, we tend to try to change everything in the outer world first. Like move that plant, change that window. You know, we do the outer, and that's also true as a soulful leader. We try to do the outer things first. And what both Maren and I are intending to do is help people be more inwardly focused in that way of like, what is it my true deeper self wanting, needing, our values, our gifts, our strengths, our passion, and then coming from the inside out. That actually is true. And why I'm relating this to feng shui is that what I what I tend to have read a lot with the feng shui is that, you know, you move three things or you do three things, but it's more than that, isn't it, William? It's really your inner world has actually chosen the house or the place that you work in, and it's not about just moving a plant or, you know, adding a room or taking something away. It's about looking at what that mirror is inside you, isn't it?
It is. And um, so much about relationship. So as we have more sacred relationship, I would say, with the land and our stewardship with the land where we are, I do believe our lives will blossom more and more and more. And it's really maybe modern culture, but maybe especially Western culture, where we don't do blessings on places like have always been done. Some cultures still do, even modern West. They have an awareness of this, that it's important to recognize things either need a cleansing and a purification, or like, so a clearing of the energies or a sealing of those energies so that everything isn't just passing on through. And that's important to create the conducive, supportive quality for what you would hope for there. And I'm remembering a story with a place where I worked in New York City. They wanted to create a wellness center, and they've been going for some years. And it was a box factory before, as we found out. So when I do this kinesiology muscle testing, I'll just describe it for those listening. Usually the arm is out extended and someone's pressing, you know, the practitioner is pressing somewhere near the wrist, and the arm will either show a strength or a weakness. And you start to get a kind of a yes, no switching off kind of thing going on. So when I worked with these folks, their bodies all said that this place was still a box factory. And Feng Shui says, there's a saying, the way something begins is the way it ends. It means it stays on that track. So for everybody listening, think about how you begin things and the qualities you bring into it. And again, making it a sacred relationship. So what we did was we reset that energy, not be a box factory, and all the people that came for decades, maybe unburdening all their stress and strife of not being happy working there they never could get this place going. And as soon as we broke that resonance, is how I would say it, we created a new energy in that place of the energy field. It became a healing center, but the place took off over the next few years. They were in the New York Times all the time. They became the go-to place for everybody. It's like the experts in their field. And the owner kept sending folks my way because she really felt like it had a lot to do with this work. And I said, it wasn't about you. You were all amazing. And I do believe you chose a place, even if it could be the most tough energy to begin with, because maybe your souls wanted to shift that and make it something new and recreate it so it could be its life mission or fulfill its purpose, which is what you're trying to configure it as now. So I have a lot of stories like that, and it's been great witness. And like you're saying, Stephanie, we're drawn to a place and we don't know if even if it's challenging. My passion a lot is families with kids, because they move into a house and if the energy isn't right, it just seems like sometimes we see families are going a different direction, which might not be helpful, or couples move into a place or a new city and then they have all this discord and break up. And I really do believe with this work that it might not be about you, it might be about the influences. And Feng Shui really says, like you said, wind and water, it's like between heaven and earth, do we have some say where we can change those qualities, like a garden, like we're trying to plant a garden in our yard, so that the soil is right and it will create this harvest that we want. So I just hope folks are hearing that maybe so much, if there is struggle and strife, it might not be about you, but it's what you're dealing with. And then another part of this that I want to share is from this year that we've all been under, we have to admit there's been a lot of trauma and it's still going on, and what good is coming from it. And I do believe it's some of what you were alluding to there is, where are we drawn to? And I believe people are more drawn to the earth and nature, maybe in new ways. Maybe it's caused some of that simplicity and that slowing down. And I would love to have even further conversations with folks about that, about our relationship to place, the land, to the earth, and how that will feed us and nourish us. And that if something isn't going so well, perhaps there's something that can be done about that. In my 2 decades of doing this work and working with thousands of people and businesses, it's been wonderful to see where things would just turn around. And I'm thinking of some folks in New York City that moved into it was a beautiful new co-op building, but it was actually had been a hospital for 100 years. And the parents said, when we moved in here, our kids became super anxious kids. And that's what I'm passionate about, is that kind of thing. And after doing the work, sure enough, they all those things changed for them. And we also offered something to that building that I do believe was like a big blessing or a prayer. So
Well, I think there's something you're saying that too. It's there's an honoring and a respect of a collaboration of the building and the people that live in it
yes,
and their intentions, because you can have a building intention, you can have the people's intention, and they might clash,
right.
to find that harmony and to find the upgrade from that as well.
One thing to say about that that's important these days to your soulful leaders is, the way something begins is the way it ends. And a lot of places, when I go in and check on things, and I do it remotely now, it works just as well. Uh, the home is not supporting their business. So it was created as a home, not as a business space. And they say, I just feel like I can never focus well, or I can't seem to have the quality of life I want to have here with the business. And the ironic thing is, it also says it's running 24/7. And then they say, but I also can't turn it off. I'm always thinking about it. And once we reconfigure that energy again, so it's like a pop-up office, so that when they're working, it opens, but then it shuts down again and it goes back to being a home. It feels wonderful to them as a home. Now it's not always a business running. Uh, People notice the difference. It's an experiential thing. So all I can share is my experience working with folks. And it's what keeps me going, is to hear the stories after. And sometimes folks will say, I don't know if I notice it, but my kids are different or my animals are different. And I'm like, yeah, well, they will really show us as well, very, very well, these things.
Well, I think that it would be great if we were able to get you together with our audience and possibly maybe do a little half an hour of actual work so that they could experience it for themselves, maybe clear their own little pop-up office or clear an area that is a little stagnant in their house where there's always clutter, or help their kids, or maybe even do something with their business and get a little snippet of some help. Would you be willing to do that?
I would love it. It's a great joy to hear you say all this.
Yeah.
Let's do what were we saying, a half hour follow-up?
Yeah.
Well, it sounds wonderful. It would be a great joy.
Terrific. So, for everybody that's listening, we will sort that out with William and make sure that we have that information
Thank you.
on our website. And that's the soulfulleaderpodcast.com. So, check that out. Make sure that you check that out. And Stephanie, did you have any final questions for William?
I just want to say thank you. And I know some time ago I had a Feng Shui session with you, William, and it really shifted so much. I just felt like I was overwhelmed at the beginning and I had all these renovations going on, and it's like you help the dust not only settle, but create a new form of sanctuary, which my home has become. So I'm just incredibly grateful and blessed to have known you and to have had the opportunity to work with you. So thank you so much for coming tonight and sharing with us your gifts and your strengths. And may all of you out there that are listening take this opportunity to jump on and have a little 30-minute session with William. It'll be definitely impactful and worth it.
Looking forward to it. And I just want to say last thing. Thank you for this evening. And it's been so wonderful to be with you both. If anyone listening is considering doing renovation.
And before we go, William, would you be willing to give your contact information if anyone wants to contact you directly?
Thank you. My website is spiritsillumination.com. So spirits with an S as in Sam, and then illumination, illumination.com. And as Stephanie was saying, if anyone is thinking of renovating, I found it helps a lot to clear the energy before you start busting into walls and doing construction like this. So in case people can't get on the 30-minute, please feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to speak with anyone.
Great. Well, we look forward to seeing you in person again and working with all of our wonderful listeners out there. And have a wonderful week until we chat with you next week.
Thank you.
And that wraps up another episode of the Soulful Leader podcast with your hosts, Stephanie Allen
and Maren Oslack. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to dive deeper, head over to our website at thesoulfulleaderpodcast.com.
Until next time.